Morning as we go to the Shita. So today is the second day of the month of the week, second reading in the portion of Lech Lecha. We're holding on chapter 12, verse number 14. And when it came to pass, when Avram came into Mitzrayim, and the women, the Mitzrayim, saw this woman, that she was extremely pretty. So Rashi said it should have said when they came to Egypt. When they came to, it says when he came to Egypt. This teaches us that he hid her in a trunk. He decided that he was going to hide her. And they would demand, and then when they demanded custom duty, what happened was they said, okay, we need to check all your trunks, all your valuables, because you have to pay custom fees. And they opened up and they saw her. That's what it says. That's what it says in the beginning that they saw her. And the Pharaoh's princess saw her. And they praised it to the Pharaoh how beautiful this woman was. And they took her to the house of Pharaoh. So now she says they praised themselves among themselves. This woman is fit for a king. Avram ate Bavure, and he benefited Avram for that situation. She now went to the Pharaoh, and he had flock, cattle and donkeys and men servants and maid servants and she donkeys and camels. Rashi's Pharaoh benefited him for her sake. Verse 17, the Lord plagued the Pharaoh, great plagues. As base says, Advar Sari Ishtay, and his whole house, and the account of Sarai, the wife of Abraham's wife. Rashi, he was stricken with the plague of Erethan, making intercourse harmful. He couldn't have any relationship, sex. As Beisai, not only who was he plagued, but his house, the Targum states, and upon the people of the house. That includes all the walls and pillars. Everything got plagued. The entire house of Pharaoh was plagued. Al Dvar Sarai, on the account. That's the simple interpretation. The word Dvar Sarai means according to the words of Sarah. She would say things and strike, and he would strike. So Dvar Sarai means that Sarah was the one who said that everybody should be plagued. Yikar Padel Avram, Padel called Avram. What have you done? Why didn't you say it's your wife? Why did you say she's my sister? And I took her for myself as a wife, Isha. And now here's your wife. Take her and go. Not like Avimelech. Later on, the same story happened again. Later on, by Avimelech, he tells to Abraham, stay here. Pharaoh said to him, go and do not stay. Because the Egyptians are lascivious. They are very immoral people. As it said, and those who issue of horses. This Jeremiah expresses about the Egyptians that they are like horses. The Pharaoh commanded men on his behalf. And he sent him and he escorted him. Again, he made sure that he protected him. Him and all his wife, whatever he had. Rashi says, Pharaoh commanded the men on his behalf, on his account, to escort him and guard him. As the Targum explains, he escorted him. Verse number 3, chapter 13, verse number 1. Avram left Egypt. you see in us the right part. The Abel should send Avram to Egypt for a very specific reason, and that we know the Gemara says whatever happened to Avram happened to his children. Avram even was sent to Mitzrayim to empty, to become extremely wealthy, as it happened to his grandchildren, that the Yidden went to Mitzrayim to become extremely wealthy. Avram went down to Avram came out of Egypt, him and his wife, and all that was his. Late was with him to the south. Ash says, meet me to the south. They were going to come to the south of the land of Israel. They were in the south. Mitzrayim is in the south. So that means they wanted to go to a specific place in the south and to continue traveling southwards to Hara Meriah. Avram Avinu was always attracted to Hara Meriah, to this mountain, which will ultimately be the Akedah. Avram Avinu, as it says, he's not to land, I'll show you Hara Meriah. And this, in every case, when he goes Egypt to the land of Canaan, he goes to south to north. The land of Egypt is south to the land of Israel, as evidence of the travel of the Jews in the desert by the boundaries of the land. So it was the Messiah was in the south. Avram covered Moed. And Avram was heavy with cattle, extremely wealthy. The Mikna, Bekesem, Bezav, he had cattle, silver, and gold. Rashi is covered Moed, coming laden with burdens. Which went on his journeys to the south until Bethel. To the place that it was previously, his tent was there previously in Bethel. Between Bethel and Ben Ai. Rashi says, what does the Torah tell us over here? When he returned from Egypt, the land of Canaan, he went to the lodge in the inns which he lodged on his way to Egypt. This teaches us etiquette. That a person should not change his lodging. It means he should come back to the lodging that he was to show that he's happy. He doesn't have to go to another lodging. He's happy with the service that he received. And that shows that he repeats to come to the place that gave him good service. Another explanation, on his return, he paid his debts. He left Israel poor. Had no money. He went to the Yatam leave. Poor man, and he owed money to the lodgings that he stopped in. Now, Baruch Hashem, he came back and he paid all his debts. In Negev, land of Egypt, is south of the land of Canaan. To the place, to the altar that she made in yesterday's reading. And Abraham called there the name, and Abraham called over there in the name of God. Rashi says, in the place where he was there to begin with, and where Abraham had called the name of the Lord. We also say that it means, and now he called there in the name of the Lord. He realized the whole reason why the Eibishter decided to fulfill the promise. Eibishter, God just fulfilled the promise that he would make him wealthy, and he made him wealthy in one journey. Now he saw the Hashgacha process. He came to Eretz, there was no money. It was the Eibishter made a promise that he would come to this Lech Lecha and he would have money. So now he saw the one journey to Adam Mitzrayim, came back, extremely a wealthy individual. So the promise of wealth was happened to Avram Avinu at that time. And that completes the Chumash of the day. We are holding in the 26th letter of the Alter Rebbe. And again, these letters, you can see from these letters, the Alter Rebbe, there was extremely a battle at that time, a philosophical battle between the sages of the time. And the Alter Rebbe was writing to his Chassidim to make sure that they understood the Shita of Chabad. What is the Shita? What is the philosophy of Chabad and the philosophy of the Baal Shem Tov and the Mitzvah Magid and the philosophy all the way till the Arizal and the Zohar. That people shouldn't make mistakes and have different understandings in it. And Alter Rebbe is here talking about an argument that they had in that time on the concept of the revelation of the meaning of the Zohar that says that the Torah, and especially the laws of what's prohibited and permitted, is all from comes from the tree of good and bad. And Alter Rebbe says that that's not the meaning. The meaning, because the whole Torah, everything in the Torah comes from Ilana Desaya. Everything comes from the tree of life, just like the Zayah comes from the tree of life. Surely the Torah comes from the tree of life, and even the laws, the basic laws of the Torah, what's permitted, what's prohibited, even the laws concerning monetary issues, all come from Ilana Desaya, which is called the tree of life. From the wisdom of God, which God in His wisdom is one. So he's arguing with the sages that disagree with him, and he showed already yesterday how he cannot say that, and now he continues. And there's yet another cause of exceeding amazement, and how those who lack understanding comprehend this quotation that I can comprehend the Zayah incorrectly. The statement comes from additional two preceding causes for surprise. Alter Rebbe said too surprised. I'm surprised that they should say this. And their misunderstanding of this quotation. A, that the portion of the Torah could be termed the tree of good and evil. Chas v'shalom, even to say such a thing, that the Torah comes from a tree of good and bad. Number two is, according to the understanding of the Rambam, the study of Isser and Heter, meaning permitted or prohibited and permitted, does not supersede the obligation of prayer fixed times, according to them. And that's not true, even though the prayers are arranged according to the secrets of the Zayah and supernal unions, where the fact that for those individuals who only occupation was studied till they themselves, the Zayah, the one who wrote the Zayah, who's the Rav Shimon Yochai, who knew all the secrets of davening when he wrote it, and he was Terasum Nasi. He was a Jew that sat in Lim Torah. The question was even if he said Shema, because he sat in Lim Torah. If he held that the Zayah was greater than the Torah, then why would Rav Shimon Yochai not stop for prayer? So we see that Rav Shimon Yochai did not stop for prayer because he felt the Torah was higher than prayer. Why? Because the Torah comes from the source from God Himself. So therefore, you can't even say that Rav Shimon Yochai is a contradiction to himself if you translate Rav Shimon Yochai's statement as meaning that concept. So therefore, you must say, and we know that Rav Shimon Yochai learned the Shisha Siddur Mishnah. That Rav Shimon Yochai, when he was in the cave for 12 months, what did he learn? He learned the halacha. So therefore, in addition to those two problematic questions, there now is the third. And the Alter Rebbe says this third question that I have, according to that interpretation, is a hafli the fella is exceedingly amazed. I'm amazed, exceedingly amazed. How is it possible that in the days of Mashiach, how is it possible to say when Mashiach comes, we will not need to know the laws of ritual prohibition and permissions of purity and impurity? How is it possible to say such a thing? It means according to them, Mashiach comes, we're not going to anymore can be connected to the tree of good and bad, connected straight to the tree of life. But that would mean that when Mashiach comes, we would not need. You don't need to know the laws of the Torah. A lot of the laws of the Torah, what's prohibited, what's permitted. That's not possible. How is it possible to make sacrifices? When Mashiach comes, we're going to go back again to Karbanis. And if you know the laws of Karbanis, the Torah law is full of what is good and what is bad in an animal. What makes an animal kosher? What makes shechita kosher? What makes the slaughter kosher? What is the good fats? What's the bad negative fat? What is the part of the animal you're allowed to eat? What part of it not? What do you mean? The whole shechita is all about that. The whole sacrifice is all about the whole. We learn together. If they didn't know the laws of drusa, chaluda, and shia, all these laws, all these laws of what the knife is, even the knife that you cut with, how what kind of knife it is, what kind of way you cut it, Did you cut the two windpipe? There's thousands of laws that make a shchita kosher or not. Give us a second, like the laws defecting the knife. Will there ever be a more man who's in his very nature, who inadvertently slaughtered without a shia drusa? Will there be a knife remain pure unblemished forever? Are you saying that Mashiach comes, there'll never be a knife that is blemished? A knife is a knife. A knife, if you're going to hit the knife against a stone, it's going to become a blemished knife, whether it's before Mashiach comes, whether after Mashiach comes. There's still going to be metal in the world. So since it's physically impossible, it's impossible when Mashiach comes, a person's going to shecht an animal and he's not going to make a mistake in a shchita. And it's not going to, the animal's throat is not going to hinder him, or the flesh of the animal is not going to affect him. It's not possible. It's impossible. People obviously have to know the particular laws governing literal slaughter. That means when Mashiach comes, we're still going to have to know the laws of what's permitted and what's prohibited. What about the laws of chaylev? The laws of kosher fats that's in the animal. What's going to happen? Mashiach comes. You're allowed to eat kosher fats? Bidam. What about blood? When Mashiach comes, it's not going to be the law that blood is going to allow to be eaten. No. Blood will be prohibited. Now blood is prohibited for a Jew. And Mashiach comes, blood will be prohibited for a Jew too. So these laws, so there's still going to be us in the heads. Mishani Sudan. What, you're not allowed to eat non-kosher? Mashiach comes. You're not allowed to eat milk and meat together. Chas v'shalom. So these laws, and if you're going to make a mistake, if you made a mistake today in mixing milk to meat together, and Mashiach comes, you're not going to make a mistake, put your spoon into a wrong place. That's going to happen. Human nature is not going to change totally, that we're going to forget, we're going to put the fork in the wrong place. So the laws are prohibited and permitted are going to continue. According to the Rambam, it's a big argument between Nachmanides and Maimonides. The Rambam holds that people will die. Even people will die. Even a person might be young, say he's a couple 100 years old and he passed away. The Rambam holds ultimately people are going to die. They might live 1,000 years, like Adam Arishan. But ultimately, they're going to die. So if people, according to the Maimonides, that are ultimately going to die, then there's going to be mess. There'll be a concept of a person that dies, even after Mashiach comes, according to the Rambam. Gam to Mashiach, especially, there's going to be childbirth. Women are going to give children, are going to have children. So if they're going to have children, are they not going to become tummy? They're not going to become impure when they have a child. If the Mashiach comes, they're going to become impure. If they're going to have to be a carbon. That's the opposite. The whole concept of what happens after a woman has a child today, we don't have. So when Mashiach comes, she'll have a child and she will become impure. She'll have to bring a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash, etc., etc. So there'll be the laws of impurity. Women will have to know these laws. So we'll be among those who stood in the whole lot of time when Mashiach comes. If a woman gives birth, according to the Zohar, a woman will give birth in one day. She'll have a relationship with her husband. The next day, she'll have a baby, like other Mauritian. Or actually, the same day, she'll have a baby. Can you imagine? Resulting from marital union, the time to come, pregnancy will not last 9 months. On the same day that a woman conceives, she'll give birth. Zohar writes. Can you imagine? What if additional children be born on successive days from the same conception? So they'll really not have to know the law. Because they'll have a relationship that day, they'll have a baby that day, and now she has to go and become impure. Nevertheless, the laws of respect and restriction regarding her impurity will not change. Maybe it'll change, certain things will change. You don't have to according to the Zohar, you won't have to have 9 months pregnancy. You'll have a child in the same day, like Adam Arishan, Adam Achava. They had a child in the same day, right? The 6th day they got married. The 6th day they were born, they were created. And the 6th day they got married. On the 6th day they had Kain and Abel. It's thus necessary to know that regarding. So ultimately, Alter Rebbe says it's thus necessary to know the laws regarding ritual impurity for a woman who was given birth. Alter Rebbe writes above elucidation that a woman will give birth every day that she conceives. According with the relation to Arizal, teaching the sage in Takta Shabbos, the future time will give birth every day. Go to Hashanas, reciting that Tzemach Tzedek, the end it differs from the commentary of Rashi, about teaching in chapter 30, or coming above quoted phrase, a pregnant woman will give birth together, from which the Gemara derives its teaching that in the future time, a woman will give birth every day. Rashi explains that every day a woman conceives a new child. She'll bear previously conceived child. As Maharsha explains, it cannot mean that conception and birth of the same child are placed on the same day. Then the proof offered here in the Gemara regarding a chicken that laid an egg daily will not apply. But even a chicken does not lay an egg every day and fertilize it. The Gemara states in Brachas, it takes 21 days. This means that Rashi explained that 21 days elapsed the time of fertilization, the time the egg is laid. Elizabeth understands the Gemara and Tractor Shabbos to mean the child will be conceived and born in the same day. So it's a whole argument in that, but I'm telling you, Tzemach Tzedek in the source quoted above goes to Medrash Rabbah, the fact that before the flood as well, woman would conceive and give birth the very same day. Wow. Further, the Alter Rebbe added the above mentioned successive birth would result from one marital union. This translation assumes the unvocalized text of the word Mibia Achas to pronounce Mibia Achat. Otherwise, others have assumed that it to pronounce Mivia Achat. Hence, if a woman will give birth every day, she brings one offering. On this interpretation, Alter Rebbe comments, what connection does it have to our subjects, especially since the law of impurity also applies nowadays, prior to arrival of Mashiach? My opinion is that the phrase means that from one marital relation, further children will be born on subsequent days from one marital union. The Rebbe concludes, this also solves a problem raised in Maharsha if Chassidus, in Chassidah Agodis. The Maharsha asks, how can it be possible additional births on subsequent days when marital relations are forbidden for 7 and 14 days after birth? This question is answered by the above statement. Successive will result in a single conception. You ladies are going to be very busy. This statement also accords with the reference made in the Gemara to a chicken which lays eggs on different days for the same fertilization. So even though imagine you'll have one relationship, you'll have for the next 3 weeks, you'll have kids one after the other. That most fits the Gemara, which relates that a certain woman conception results in the birth of 2 children 3 months apart. The Gemara says an interesting story how that happened. I don't know. Ultimately, there's no need to dwell on something that's obvious, as the fact that the laws will apply in the time of Mashiach, so that then too they will necessary to know the laws are prohibited, what's isra v'heter, what's prohibited and what's allowed, purity, number. An entire Talmud, the Mishnah, is known to reverse the misleading impression formed by a superficial reading of the opening quotation on Ayman. The Parach lehilchos l'Mashiach. Example: the question is asked: a law for the time of Mashiach. Why state now a law that will apply for Mashiach's time? At that time, however, it will obviously be necessary to know it. And Eliyahu, we know it in the Gemara, Eliyahu will come and clarify all the doubts. This passage alone, Eliyahu will expound in the future. So Eliyahu will expound this alone in the future. So therefore, you have a question. There are a lot of questions in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Teku. If you have a question in the Gemara, it cannot be answered. We'll wait till Mashiach comes, and Mashiach will answer the question. Well, you'll know will answer the question. It's also understandable the statement of Naim Nehemia. It says in Naim Nehemia, when Mashiach comes, the Torah scholars will not sustain by illiterate people, and so on. As stated above, the tree of good and evil, which is the root of Issa Veheta, will not dominate the Jewish people because the Torah scholars will not be sustained by a little group of people. V'loy me'edev rab, and not from the mixtitude of multitude. The achlim pastor v'tomei v'asach hashom who eat, which are richly unfit and pure, prohibited and heaven forbidden. So the Zohar writes an interesting expression: Mashiach comes, will only be that the Torah scholars will be supported only by righteous people. But we see that before already. The Gemara says that even at the time of the second temple, that's before Mashiach came, they were not supported by illiterate people. The way which is richly unfit, prohibited, heaven forbid. Why? Because the Talmid Chacham had their own vineyards and their own, just like the illiterate people. Rashi, vineyards. Nevertheless, the sages who had their own vineyards, their own panas, didn't have to come on to anybody for their panas. They had their own panas. So they didn't have, so in essence, according to the way you interpret the Zohar, so they lived in the Messianic time already. But nevertheless, these sages learned the laws of what's prohibited and what's permitted. So even though they lived a Messianic life, and they didn't have to come on to anybody for their parnasa, especially for people that were eating non-kosher, etc. All the example, all the pairs of sages that lived in a time in a second. And these great sages of the second temple, Talmudic time, which is the Gemara's times. I mean, not the Gemara's time, the Gemara was written much later. The sages that lived in the times of the second temple that are brought in the Gemara. And they raised disciples in the legal aspects of Torah for thousands and tens of thousands of students. While the study of esoteric Torah took place in the secret. So look at that. They learned with their students Jewish law, while they didn't even taught their students Kabbalah. Kabbalah was the secret. A lot of the Chaya, which is called the Kabbalah, is called comes from the tree of life. You would think they would teach their children, their students, from the tree of life. No, they taught their students from the book, from the laws of the Torah, the basic laws of the thousands upon thousands of students. And if they thought that the teachings of laws of what's prohibited and permitted comes from the tree of good and bad, and the Zohar comes from the tree of life only, then they would have taught their students the Zohar. But they didn't. The Zohar was in their times only learned to a very few. And the majority of the students learned the laws of Mishnah and the Gemara, the laws of what legal laws of the Torah. Why? Because the Alter Rebbe said that proves that the legal laws of the Torah also come from the tree of life. We thus see the fact that Torah scholars are not sustained under illiterate in a way they caused by their studies, God forbid, the laws of Issa Veheta, purity and impurity. They continue to learn these laws. They continue to teach these laws because they felt that these laws of the Torah, what is permitted and what's prohibited, the laws of legal laws between man and man, all come from the Lada Dechaya. They all come from the tree of life, which is the tree, which is symbolic to the Chachmas, the wisdom of God, which is the true life, Haya Chaim, the life of all life. And therefore, every part of the Torah, whether it's the Torah, the Kabbalah, which is the esoteric part of Torah, which has been revealed, Baruch Hashem, to the Arizal and to the Baal Shem Tov, and ultimately through all Chabad, the Alter Rebbe himself, and also the laws of the Torah, which talks about what's permitted and what's not permitted, and even the laws of the Torah talks about a cow goring a cow, another cow, and if somebody steals and if somebody robs, all these laws all come from the Eibishter himself and God himself. In Lada Dechayef, in the life of all life, which is God himself, and all connected to the wisdom, which is the God and his wisdom are one. So the Alter Rebbe writes in this letter that we shouldn't make the mistake, even though some of the sages have made this mistake in this time, should not make chas v'shalom this mistake in the interpretation of the Zohar. And that completes the Tanya of the day. Today is the 6th day of the month, which is chapter 35, 36, 37, 38. 35 to 38, and you would do the Chitas of the day. I wish you all a good, wonderful, beautiful day. It's Shem tomorrow. We continue at 8 a.m. the Chitas.